Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the podcast. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not, you might say, this is a different location than we're usually at. And it is. This is my bedroom. Usually we're in the living room. We got a guest over this weekend, so I'm going to do it from my bedroom. Of course, we still got Lance. We still got the Texans helmet. New Texas flag on the set for the first time today. Pumpkins and football all back, notebook and iPad, which means we're ready to go. As always, huge episodes after Saturday nights because it is instant reaction Sunday mornings. It is very early on Sunday morning, October 19th, beautiful Sunday morning in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's raining a little bit, but it's still beautiful. And we are not going to waste any time. It was a beautiful weekend of college football, as it always is. And I say weekend, not just Saturday, because of our Friday results. There were some fantastic games on Friday night, as you're probably aware if you're watching this video. And the greatness of Friday carried into Saturday. We had some epic moments. Huge rivalry games went down. The teams that I think are top 5 in the country got big-time wins against big-time rivals. And then also, there was 5 undefeated teams that lost this weekend. A bunch of top 10 teams lost. Conference races are starting to get crazy. I mean, guys, there is not a single conference after this week that, to me, there's an obvious front runner. I thought it was Miami with the ACC, they go down. I thought it was Texas Tech with the Big 12, they went down. I mean, everything right now is up in the air. Every conference is going to be so much fun. The playoff race is heating up. Teams are getting eliminated. Teams are making their cases. It's chaos time in college football. No one has any idea what's going on. It's crazy. How did Alabama lose to Florida State in week 1, by the way? I feel like we haven't addressed that enough as a college football society. The fact that this Alabama team that has just won against 4 straight ranked SEC teams lost to a Florida State team that just lost to 4 straight ACC teams. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That result just goes to show how weird and how just out the window crazy college football can be every weekend and every year. It's fantastic. We're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it, as I've been saying already. On Friday night, Jeff Brom, 3-2 against top 5 teams, Jeff Brom, head coach of the Louisville Cardinals, Jeff Brom, if you don't know what I'm talking about, took the Cardinals into Miami and upset the number 2 ranked Hurricanes. Are you kidding me? I don't think anyone really saw this coming other than Jeff Brom, maybe Miller Moss, perhaps Chris Bell. But this game was awesome. Just another little tidbit about this rivalry. The away team has now won 4 straight in this rivalry. And just shocking. I mean, Miami, a lot of people had Miami at number 1 going into this week. A lot of people thought Miami was the most impressive team in the country. Resume-wise, I think they were maybe the most impressive team in the country behind a couple other teams. But Miami was just looking spectacular. And then in comes Louisville, and they just smacked him in the mouth to start the game. 2 straight touchdowns on 2 straight possessions, and those possessions were awesome. Jeff Brom basically threw the whole playbook out in the first 2 drives, and you could tell that they went up and down the field. They scored really easily, and then Miami settled into the game. Malachi Toney just continues to prove that he's maybe the second best freshman wide receiver that we've ever seen in college football behind Jeremiah Smith. I'll give Jeremiah his flowers, but Malachi Toney's fantastic. Miami's defense really started to squeeze Louisville's offense. Their talent profile showed. Their strength and their passion and their energy showed. And Miami's offense just couldn't really get off the ground, but they fought. They got themselves back into it with a huge scoop and score fumble. And then Carson Beck throws 4 interceptions, and Louisville wins the game. Crazy upset. Crazy just falling apart moment for the Miami Hurricanes. But I'm going to break down sort of why that was from my perspective. So, everyone is going to hound Carson Beck for this. He threw 4 interceptions. Obviously, that's not great. But I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I think this is very similar to a story that we've heard before. Where have we heard of a quarterback that had Heisman hopes at one point in the season, albeit early in the year, who looked great, but whose offense didn't have a run game at all, so he had to make all of the plays, and because of that, ended up developing a turnover problem, and lack of running game and an influx of turnovers creates an offense that doesn't function. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the story of the 2024 Georgia Bulldogs, captained by none other than Carson Beck. And Carson Beck transfers to Miami and instantly has a run game and instantly has better weapons. We saw that against Notre Dame. We saw it against Florida. And we were seeing it in ACC play with Miami. In comes Louisville, and basically Louisville just completely took away the run game. Almost just completely. Just like what teams did against Georgia last year, which makes Carson Beck have a lot of pressure on his shoulders and makes him have to go out there and win football games. And guess what? He couldn't do it. Because when he doesn't have to run, Mark Fletcher had 8 carries for 18 yards. That's their running back one. You really tell me, you held that dude to 18 yards on 8 carries? I was super impressed with Louisville's run game. And, Carson Beck just missed some really bad throws. Louisville stacked the box a lot and then ran like cover 2. And Carson Beck was just completely confused. He missed wide open guys. He threw the ball into coverage many, many times. The last interception got batted down, but still wasn't a good throw. It was bad for Miami. I was saying all week, in the last couple weeks, Miami is vulnerable. I didn't think it was going to happen this week. I'm not going to take all the credit. But I was saying Miami is vulnerable because A, I haven't seen an explosive run game from them, and B, Carson Beck is turnover prone. And that's exactly what bit them in this game. That's exactly why they lost. Also, props to Louisville for getting the ball to Isaac Brown more. They only had 15 carries. I think he could have had more. But at least he had 15. I still don't understand. He had 15 carries for like 110 yards. Why not give him the ball more? I didn't really understand that, but Jeff Brown called a great game, so who am I to complain? The Carson Beck roller coaster is kind of hilarious if you think about it this year. He was so underrated to start the year. Everyone was hating on him for leaving Georgia, going to Miami. Everyone's saying he was not going to do anything special. And then he goes out and beats Notre Dame, and everyone's like, oh, Heisman contender, And like a lot of people had him as a Heisman frontrunner going into this week. And that's just vastly overrating Carson Beck. And now that he had that terrible performance, now that he lost to Louisville, now that he threw 4 interceptions in one game, everyone is going to say he's the worst quarterback ever. He's never going to do anything. He's a terrible quarterback. I think we just need to chill out on Carson Beck a little bit and maybe acknowledge the fact that it's the rest of the team around him that maybe is part of the reason why they lost this football game, not just the quarterback. Let's look at Miami's path, though, the rest of the year, because obviously people are going to overreact to this, and I understand. The number 2 team just went down to an unranked team, and people are going to be like, oh, Miami's season's over. This team's season is not over. If we just look at their schedule real quick the rest of the year, they got Stanford at home on Saturday. Next Saturday, that should be pretty easy. Then they got SMU on the road. That's a really tough game, but after that, you get Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, and Pitt. So, no, Miami season's not over. No, I think Miami's going to win the rest of their games in the regular season, even though they're going to play at SMU on Saturday, November 1st. But I am concerned after watching that game for when Miami has to play some of the elite teams they're going to have to play in the college football playoffs once they get there. Not if they get there, once they get there. But Miami's season is still entirely in front of them. Honestly, this could have been the result they needed. We know how cocky Miami football gets. Maybe this brings them back to earth a little bit. Maybe this makes them more dialed in, more focused, especially on the offensive line, which I thought was fantastic the first couple weeks of the year, but they just imploded against Louisville of all people. And also, I'm talking a lot about negatives from Miami. Louisville's secondary is elite. They have been all year. They're first in the ACC in yards allowed per game going into this game, and their defense played phenomenally. So, Louisville, credit to you. You played a great game. I'm just talking about Miami more because I think they're the better team, even though they just lost 2 at home, which is crazy. But I still think Miami has their whole season in front of them. I still like them to make the playoffs. I still think they can win a playoff game. And honestly, I never had Miami ranked higher than I think 5th or 6th in my power ratings, which I was getting some plaque for. I had some people, I had Miami at number 6 going into this week, and that's the highest I've had them. Most everyone else has them at 1 or 2. I didn't really move them up that high. I had Notre Dame over Miami going into this week. And I don't know, a lot of people had them at 1 or 2. This is not the most shocking result to me. It is shocking. I didn't think it was going to happen. I picked Miami to win. But it made a little bit of sense. This might be good for this team. It's not the worst thing in the world. But the ACC race, by the way, everyone says, the ACC race is pretty easy to break down. Miami's just going to win it. Well, guess what? Miami is not even in the top 6 for teams in the ACC standings right now. And standings are really starting to matter in college football. Obviously, the first 3 teams in the ACC, or obviously the first 2 are Georgia Tech and Virginia. Georgia Tech did it again against Duke. They got completely outplayed in that game and yet won by 9. I don't understand how Georgia Tech keeps doing it. They're kind of getting lucky, but they're 7-0, so who's to blame them? Virginia is undefeated in the ACC. They're sitting at 6-1. SMU is undefeated in the ACC at 3-0. And then the one-loss teams in the ACC are Pitt at 3-1, even though they got smoked by somebody. I forget who it was. Duke's at 3-1. Louisville now at 2-1. Cal at 2-1, and Miami 8th in the ACC right now at 1-1. I still think Miami's going to win out. I still think they have a good chance at making the ACC championship game. Who will they play? Will it be Georgia Tech? I don't think so. I don't think Georgia Tech can keep getting lucky the way that they are and winning these football games. They could. I could be completely wrong, but I think it could be SMU, could be Louisville, could be maybe Duke, maybe Virginia. It could be anyone. The ACC is wide open. I think it's going to be a really fun race to see who gets to Charlotte. And this game just sort of proves anyone can beat anyone in any conference. And if you didn't believe that, it happened this week. So, awesome performance by Jeff Brom and the Cardinals in Miami. You should be really proud if you're a Louisville fan. And if you're a Miami fan, don't hang your head down too low. You'll still have an opportunity to go out and win football games and make the playoffs and making a huge impactful 2025 season for your program. Moving on from what I thought was the biggest story of the weekend with Miami losing to what I think is the second biggest story of the weekend, the Ole Miss Rebels came in to Athens to face the Georgia Bulldogs, and this game was awesome. This was such a good football game. It was clean. There were not a lot of penalties. There were some stoppages, of course, because it's college football, but not a lot of penalties. Great atmosphere in Athens. The fans really showed up. Kirby said he wanted it to be the best home atmosphere ever, and it was fantastic. The pageantry was great uniforms. It was 2:30. It was perfect weather over there in Athens. Just a cookie-cutter, awesome college football game with Chris and Kirk on the call. If you watched this game, hats off to you. You watched an amazing college football game. I didn't watch the whole thing because I was moving throughout Tuscaloosa doing some stuff. But I did watch the highlights and I did look at the box scores, and I have a lot of analysis on this game. First of all, the first thing I want to say is that I think it's so awesome how much Kirby Smart loves this team. Is this the best team that Kirby Smart has ever had? No chance. It is not anywhere close to that. I mean, Kirby was on Saban's staff for all those years. So not only has he been the head coach of great Georgia teams, but he was the defensive coordinator for the 2015 Alabama Crimson Tide, the 2012 Alabama Crimson Tide, 2011. So many good players on those teams, so rich with talent. Then goes to Georgia. That 2021 and 2022 and 2023 Georgia teams, that 3-year stretch, those teams are so much better talent-wise than this Georgia team. It's not even close, in my opinion. But Kirby loves this team so much. I'm going to get into why in a second. I'm going to take a little sip of water first. I think Kirby loves his team for 3 main reasons. First of all, this team's resiliency. And I'm going to kind of expand on this idea more in a second, but I think the resiliency from this team is an awesome thing. In my opinion, well, of course, the Tennessee win, awesome win for Georgia. We talked about that for a really long time a few weeks ago, but they had that win. Crazy on the road. You were down against a rival win. You come back and find a way to win. Awesome. Against Alabama, of course, you lose, but in my opinion, they outplayed the Crimson Tide in the second half and should have won that game. So that was awesome too. And the week after that, or not the week after that, but a couple weeks after that, you play against Auburn on the road, another huge rival. Another game where you get smacked in the mouth to start the game. You're down 10-0. And then some things go your way. And then we get into the second half. And again, the resiliency of this team shows strong. And it happened again against Ole Miss. They were down at halftime. Ole Miss scored on their first 5 possessions, touchdowns. And yet Georgia still claws back and finds a way to win this game. I think Kirby loves the resiliency of this team. You can tell because he gets so happy on the sidelines when things go Georgia's way. I think it's great to see. That's the number one reason why I think Georgia or Kirby Smart loves this team. I think they give 100% every game. I look at Gunnar Stockton throwing balls 40 yards down the field and getting smacked and not even caring. I see these running backs being unselfish. They got 4 great running backs. None of them really seem to be demanding all the carries on this team. You got some great receivers. You got 2 dominant X receivers that are just trying to win. You got offensive linemen playing hurt against Auburn on one leg, and just dominating Auburn defensive linemen. This team gives 100% every single game. Their 100% might not be as high as other teams' 90%, but they give it. And I think Kirby loves that. I think he sees it and he loves it. And I think Kirby loves Gunnar Stockton. Gunnar Stockton, obviously, is not the most talented guy in the world. He's not going to be a first-round draft pick. He's not going to be an NFL MVP. But he just has guts, man. Gunnar Stockton has guts, and he has effort, and he has everything you want out of a football player. And I think Kirby loves that. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about with this Georgia team. So let's break down what happened in this game. First of all, wow, I was so insanely impressed with what Lane Kiffin was able to do against Kirby Smart. I looked at this game, first of all, and I said, okay, well, I think Georgia's linebackers and defensive line are going to sort of suffocate Ole Miss's run game. I think they're better in the trenches. And I think Ole Miss is going to try and take those one-on-one shots down the sideline like they always do. And I think Ole Miss's corners are just better than Georgia's. Or no, flip that around. I think Georgia's corners are just better than Ole Miss's wide receivers, and they're going to win those one-on-one battles. That's what I thought. I thought Georgia was going to run man coverage, take away the run, and then not let Ole Miss win on the outside. And what Lane Kiffin did is he said, you know what? I don't care if you're going to beat us one-on-one because I'm not going to give you one-on-one opportunities. It's so genius. It's so crafty what Lane Kiffin does on offense. He brings tight ends in motion. He runs fake inside zone split and throws to the tight end. He'll run these 5-yard comeback routes against cover 3. He just knows. He's so good at adjustments, knowing what the defense is lining up in, and he must watch so much film because he just is aware of what Kirby Smart's defense is in, and then you can see him on the sideline. He's communicating it to his team so they know exactly what to do, and then they do it. It's unreal. They scored on their first 5 times they touched the ball. And yeah, they made like 1 or 2 big plays against man coverage down the field, but they don't throw like these deep bombs. And they also didn't run the ball that consistently to running backs. They're just so crafty and they're so hard to stop. I look at this barrage, this 35 straight, or not 35 straight points, but 35 points on 5 possessions barrage that Lane Kiffin was able to dial up. And I'm giving all credit to Ole Miss's offense for putting Georgia's linebackers in impossible situations, for eliminating Georgia's awesome corners, for not letting Georgia's safeties to step up and make plays. I think this is so much more a credit to Ole Miss's genius than it is to Georgia's lack of good defense. I think Georgia's defense couldn't have done very much to stop this, in my opinion. I think Ole Miss just kind of played perfect to start the game, offensively at least. But this is interesting. This is the 4th time in a row against a really high-quality SEC team, other than Kentucky. I'm going to leave out Kentucky. I'm sorry. But Georgia has gotten smacked in the mouth offensively to start the game against Tennessee. They scored on 3 straight possessions. Alabama put up 24 points in the first half. Auburn just controlled the game. They did whatever they want with Jackson Arnold, Eric Singleton in the rush game. And then Ole Miss scores on 5 straight possessions. I mean, Georgia, I don't know if it's just teams saving their best offensive plays and stuff until they play Georgia, or if it's something else, but they're just getting smacked around in the first half on defense. Ole Miss started a perfect 5 for 5 on 3rd down. It's crazy. In their first 5 drives, they had 5 third downs. That's it. That's how fast they were scoring. That's how efficient they were. Unbelievable. Just so much wow. I try to not use that word as much as I can, unbelievable, because I think it's overused in the sports media world. But this really was unbelievable for me, how good they were on offense to start the game. But let's, honestly, towards the end of the game in the 4th quarter, they sort of went away from that. They started trying to win one-on-one. And Georgia ran man coverage and locked them down. I think that's why they won the game. Trinidad, though, I just want to say Trinidad made a lot of big plays. Again, is he the type of quarterback that's just going to completely carve you up through the passing game in a full-on air raid attack? No. But he's a baller, and he's exactly what Lane Kiffin needs. Isn't it just, God, man, Lane Kiffin I could go on a rant about how great he is on offense. The fact that he's able to take a dude from Ferris State and turn him into one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, to me, says more about him than it does about Trinidad. But I do still love Trinidad, so I don't want to give too much flack on him. But again, just great performance from this Ole Miss offense. To me, the reason Georgia won this game was because not only they made a bunch of big plays one-on-one late in the game on defense, but because of their ability to control this game on offense. Remember, last year, when Georgia played this Ole Miss team, they put up 10 points. That was it. And you might say, Robert, well, why was that? The answer, they could not run the ball at all. It was literally a theme for them all of last year, and it really bit them against Ole Miss. I think they ran the ball for I want to say 50 or 60 yards in the game last year against Ole Miss. Flipped to this year, and Georgia was able to run the ball 49 times for 221 yards. They killed last year. They played so much better offensively last year. Of course, Ole Miss, their front seven's pretty good, but it was elite and dominant last year, so they don't have that. But I just the unselfishness of this rushing attack, I think, is really cool. I mean, the fact that you have Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, and Gunnar Stockton with 10-plus carries, and then Josh McCray getting in the red zone, and then Cash Jones on third down. I love the balance of this run game. It was so much better today than it was last year. I already kind of said that. So because that was true, Ole Miss was able to, or Georgia was really able to dominate time of possession, and they just kind of had control over this game. And even though Ole Miss was flying down the field and scoring every time they touched the ball, Georgia was able to respond, and they were able to sort of keep Ole Miss's offense off the field for a little bit because of the ability to run the ball and control this game. Also, Gunnar Stockton. Wow. If you haven't read Gunnar Stockton's stat line yet, the kid was 26 for 31 for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns, really earning that Gunnar name. He was beautiful out there, didn't turn the ball over. A lot of the people's critique for Gunnar Stockton at the beginning of the year, the first few games, was that he's just kind of too timid and too afraid to push the ball down the field against zone coverage. That was not the case against Auburn last week, and it was not the case this week against Ole Miss. So big time shout out to Gunnar for his courage in this game. I think it was big time in making those throws. Also, big time shout out to Mike Bobo. I usually don't do this because I don't think Mike Bobo does a great job, but he's always been great in the red zone. I think that's where Mike Bobo shines. He was great again today. He's the Georgia offensive coordinator, for those who are unaware. And I think he had a game plan in this game. Usually he doesn't come out with a game plan to start games offensively, and it's so shocking to me that I think that's part of the reason why Georgia's been so poor in the first half of games this year. But he came out with a game plan. He came out really influencing these Ole Miss linebackers, really making them make plays. He had a lot of simple, easy completions against man coverage for Gunnar Stockton. He had that flea flicker, which, by the way, absolute dime from Gunnar Stockton. I think that was the best throw that he's made. Definitely in that game, one of the best he's made of the year. If you're not aware, it was early play in the first quarter. They ran a flea flicker. Colby Young ran sort of like a post corner, and Gunnar just hit him on the money and man coverage on the run. So I was really impressed with Gunnar Stockton today. And again, he's able to spread it out amongst his receivers. Zachariah Branch is so good after the catch. Man, that dude is so elusive. Dylan Bell had a big game. Lawson Lucky, of course, had three touchdowns. 2 of those touchdowns, again, were sort of just beautiful, drawn-up plays by Mike Bobo. Him in the red zone, it's tough to stop. Oscar Delp was pretty good in this game. Colby Young just had the one catch on the flea flicker. I think he was injured for part of this game. I don't remember. We'll have to check on that later in the week. And then London Humphreys had a couple catches. None of his receivers had over 100 yards, and Gunnar was nearly at 300. So this, to me, was more of just a Gunnar Stockton great game than it was anything else. An interesting stat, this is sort of more credit to Ole Miss's style of offense than it is to Georgia, but Georgia has 0 sacks in this game. Ole Miss's run and shoot, veer and shoot style of offense really kept them at bay. So I think this is a huge win for Georgia. Of course, this is Ole Miss's first SEC loss. And if you say to yourself, people have a lot, they tend to overreact all the time about any sort of loss for anybody. But Ole Miss, the rest of their schedule is fairly simple. Next week, they got to go at Oklahoma. Of course, there's nothing simple about that. But then they play South Carolina at home. They get the Citadel. They get Florida at home. They get a bye, and then they get Mississippi State. So in terms of SEC schedules, Ole Miss has a very simple one the rest of the way. And I don't want to go out and say they're a playoff lock because I did that last year, and then they lost to Florida. They could very well lose to Florida again. They could very well lose to Oklahoma. Who knows? They could lose to Mississippi State on the road. I'm not saying that's impossible. So am I saying Ole Miss is a playoff lock? No, but from what I saw today, I think Ole Miss's chances to make the playoffs are over 50%. I think that they could go 10-2 at least. I mean, if you only have one loss the next 6 weeks against teams that I think you are going to be favored against every single one of these teams, that puts you in the playoffs for sure. So I think Ole Miss is a great chance to go dancing this year. And then Georgia, on the other hand, I think they could very well. In fact, I predict an Alabama-Georgia rematch in the SEC championship game, which I think would be awesome for Georgia. I think Georgia fans would love that. Unless they lose again, then they would hate that. But I think Georgia's still a fantastic team. The resiliency, man, something special. And I think they're getting better in the first half. They're not quite there yet, but they're getting there. So big time win for the Dogs. Their offense just looks spectacular. And Kirby loves this team. I think if I was a Dogs fan, I would love this team. They've got personality. They fight. They give 100%, and they're resilient. So go Dogs today. Huge win in the SEC for Georgia. Moving on to another SEC game. Another top 10 team losing. And this time it was at the hands of Diego Pavia and the Vanderbilt Commodores, who hosted 10th ranked LSU and knocked off the Tigers for the first time since 1990. Folks, Vanderbilt is bowl eligible. Vanderbilt is 6-1 for the first time since 1950. That's before my parents were born. In fact, that's 24 years before my parents were born. So Vanderbilt is really doing things that they have never done before at a consistent basis. So big shout out to Vanderbilt. I mean, Clark Lee has built it's a beautiful story. What he's been able to do at Vanderbilt. I have so much respect for the Commodores. I think it's so awesome. The fact that they won this game is unbelievable. I picked them to win, and they won. It was an awesome time watching this football game. And Vanderbilt, they finally did what they're supposed to do. They finally did what makes them good. Against Alabama, they went out and they basically said, you know what, this is Pavia's moment, man. We're going to give the ball to Pavia. He's going to throw it a bunch. He's going to go out and win the game for us. That's not how you win football games, Vanderbilt. You win football games by controlling time of possession and by running the ball for over 200 yards a game. And that's what they did in this game. Hallelujah. Thank goodness if you're a Vanderbilt fan or if you're just a college football fan cheering for one of the Cinderellas in the sport right now. Vanderbilt outrushed LSU 239-100. If you do that, normally you win football games. And that's what they did. In the Alabama game, they handed the ball off to their running backs only like 8 times. It was under 10 times that they gave the ball to their running backs to run the football. And it's not like it wasn't working. Cedric Alexander broke off like an 80-yard touchdown run, and they just went away from it. In this game, Alexander had 14 carries by himself. Trey Richardson had 3. Young had 5. Newberry had 2. So they had over 30 carries from running backs in this football game, which way more, over 3 times as much as they had against Alabama. So they finally did what they're supposed to do. And because of that, they dominated time possession. They had 36.5 to LSU's 23.5. So they just controlled the ball in this game. And Pavia didn't turn it over. I literally said the keys to success in this game, Pavia protects the football and they run the ball to the running backs more. And that's exactly what they did. Let me take a quick swig real quick. I think if you look at Vanderbilt and you say, can the Commodores make it to Atlanta? That's a question that I've been hearing floated around there a lot. Well, if you want to do it, the rest of your SEC games are tough. You got road games against Texas and Tennessee, and you got home games against Missouri and Auburn. Those are vastly, vastly talented teams. You also got to play Kentucky at home. Don't want to disrespect Kentucky. Again, sorry, Wildcats fans. But Vanderbilt, I think, could they? Probably not. I don't think so, but I hope so. I really, really hope so. I don't know if they match up well with these teams, but whether you make it to Atlanta or not, whether you make the playoffs or not, and I don't have them making the playoffs, but if they do, that would just be unbelievable. But even if they don't, still storybook year for the Vanderbilt Commodores. Very, very proud of this team, for sure. I mean, that atmosphere in Nashville, it's something that no one expected at all to come out from Vanderbilt from this revamped SEC. Now we turn the page to the LSU Bayou Bengals. Now, the reason I think they keep struggling on offense, of course, you can't run the ball consistently. That's kind of obvious. Of course, Kane Durham had the 51-yard run. I think it was in the third quarter that he broke that one off. If Kane Durham did not rush for 51 yards on that one play, LSU would have had 20 carries for 49 yards. That's it. That is it. Yeah, your run game was good against South Carolina, but so is Oklahoma's this week. So maybe South Carolina is just the least common denominator of a team that's terrible at stopping the run. And teams that can't run the ball well against them because they can't stop the run. And against this team, Vanderbilt, a team that Alabama ran the ball on for a lot, you really struggled. And if you struggle to run the ball, but your passing attack is fantastic, then that's fine. But LSU struggled to run the ball, and their quarterback is very obviously not at 100%. To me, that gets more and more obvious each week I see him. He's banged up. He's got injuries. And his receiving core is also banged up. Aaron Anderson and Nick Anderson are also far from 100%. And they both played today, but they combined for 2 catches for 18 yards. If they're healthy, they're getting way more than that. I think the only guy that they have in their receiving cores that are truly healthy are Xavier Thomas, Trey'Dez Green, and Barry Brown. Those 3. And those 3 are not your most dynamic playmakers. So when your most dynamic playmakers are out, and your quarterback's not at 100%, and your defense is giving up 230 plus yards per game and you can't run the ball, you got nothing. So, honestly, the fact that they still only lost this game by 7, I think is impressive. But, man, also, they have no creative play calling. What is Brian Kelly supplying to this team? Is it just talent retention and talent acquisition? If that's it, just make him your general manager and go get another coach. I just don't see the creativity that he has on the offensive side of the football. I don't even think it's there. So, of course, he's going to be back on the hot seat after this loss. And LSU, they don't have the easiest slate after this. They still got to play A&M next week and at Alabama. Those are going to be 2 top 4 teams that they're going to have to play. Then they get Arkansas, Western Kentucky, and at Oklahoma. Those are 3 very losable games the rest of the way. If you tell me LSU goes 7-5 and Brian Kelly keeps his job, I don't know if I agree with you. I don't know off the top of my head how much that buyout is. But honestly, Penn State paying over $50 million for James Franklin's buyout, the idea of buyouts mattering in these coach firings to me has sort of gone out the window. Do I think Brian Kelly should be on the hot seat? Yes. I don't see what Brian Kelly is supplying the LSU Tigers that they can't get with another coach. Do I think that other coach will be Marcus Freeman? No. Everyone's saying Marcus Freeman is going to leave Notre Dame. I don't see it happening, but that's neither here nor there. Do I think Auburn should fire Hugh Freeze? No. Do I think LSU should fire Brian Kelly? Yes. I don't want to get into Hugh Freeze right now, but I just don't see what Brian Kelly has supplied LSU consistently. Other than talent acquisition. He's great at talent acquisition. He's a great recruiter, but LSU's always going to have great recruiting classes. I don't know. I don't see it. But again, don't want to talk about that too much. I want to stress the huge win for Vanderbilt, the Commodores, and just winning beating a top 10 team at home is huge for them. Again, they're 6-1 for the first time since 1950. Huge stuff from the Commodores. So proud of them and my sweet baby boy Diego. We're moving on from the LSU Vanderbilt game, just a little while south, down to Tuscaloosa, where it was the 3rd Saturday in October, and the Alabama Crimson Tide defeated the Tennessee Volunteers by 17 points. They won 37-20. I don't think that people really, first of all, a huge win for Alabama, big rivalry game. They lost last week, big get-back spot, and they got it. Huge for them. I don't think people really understand how crazy the Xavier Brown pick six was. I mean, it was a 99-yard pick six. It was crazy. If you didn't watch the highlights, Tennessee had the ball at the Alabama 1 yard line pretty much. I think it was the 1 or the 2 yard line with 9 seconds to go in the first half. And they ran play action bootleg. Not a bad play call. And the throw was intercepted by Xavier Brown at the goal line, and he returned it all the way back for a touchdown. And the score was 16-7 at the time. So if Tennessee had scored, it would have been 16-14. Instead, Alabama got the pick six, and they went into the locker room up 23-7. I mean, that just shifts so much. It's a 14-point swing. And Alabama only ended up winning by 17, so that kind of tells you how much that changed in this game. Just imagine you're Tennessee, and you go out there in the first half, and you game plan. We talk about Josh Heupel being one of the best scripters in college football, which means having the best first quarter offenses in college football. And you go out there and you go 3-and-out on your first possession, and you don't score in the first quarter. So things are going terribly wrong, and yet your defense is keeping in it. You're clawing your way to halftime, and you're about to punch it in, and you had a terrible first half, but hey, you're only going to be down by 2, and it's going to be great. And Josh Heupel's thinking, you know what, this is a huge win for us. We had a terrible first half, but we're going to go into the locker room down by 2. We're going to motivate the guys. We're going to have the momentum on our side. We're going to go out in the second half, and we're going to win this football game. And the pick 6 happens. And instead of being down 2, you're down 16. That is nuts. And you end up losing the game by 17. Just a quick pop quiz for those out there. Between Alabama and Tennessee, guess which team had more first downs? Which team was better on 3rd and 4th down? Which team had more passing yards? Which team had more rushing yards? Guess what? Tennessee led Alabama in every single one of those categories. More total yards, more first downs, better on 3rd and 4th down, way more passing yards and way more rushing yards. Not way more, but more, substantially more. And yet they lost. Not only did they lose, but they lost by 17. Not only was it that by double digits, it was by 3 possessions that they lost this game. Crazy. I mean, Tennessee ran the ball well, obviously. I mean, duh. Tennessee always runs the ball well. That's Josh Heupel's forte. They did have some drops in this game. On 3rd down and longs, Joey Aguilar threw some great passes that Tennessee wide receivers, frankly, just didn't hold on to. So I think Alabama got a little bailed out there. I think Tennessee played a great game of football. Honestly, you could make the argument that they outplayed Alabama in a lot of aspects. Tennessee just absolutely killed Alabama's run game. The whole game, pretty much. I mean, if you take Alabama's RB1 and RB2 and Jam Miller and Kevin Riley, they combined 15 carries for 13 yards. That is terrible. Tennessee's front 7 just dominated the run game from Alabama. They were completely stopped in their tracks. Daniel Hill had a good couple of garbage time runs in the 4th quarter, but other than that, they were locked down. And then if you look at Alabama's passing attack, I was at the game, and I was sitting in the upper bowl, so I really got to see a lot of the coverages that Tennessee was in. They ran so much man coverage. And this is a Tennessee team that going into the year had 2 of the best corners in the SEC get injured. So they went from running a lot of man coverage to running like no man coverage and pretty much all zone in the first 2 weeks of the season. They flipped that against Alabama. They ran man, and honestly, these Alabama receivers are not the best at creating separation against man coverage. They're great. I mean, Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, Isaiah Horton, Latair Brooks, these guys are fantastic. But this, to me, is the 3rd straight week I've seen an SEC team wheel out, or 4th straight, I've seen an SEC team play man coverage against Alabama and win. So shout out to Tennessee's young secondary for really playing great in man coverage. So why did Alabama win this game? Of course, the 14-point swing for the pick 6, just gargantuan. I mean, if you don't have that, I think Tennessee wins the game. Straight up. I think if Xavier Brown had, or if they had scored on that play, I think Tennessee wins the game. Like 100%. But what did Alabama do good? I think Ryan Grubb was just in his bag in the second half. That's Alabama's offensive coordinator. Just drew up some awesome run alternatives. Alabama couldn't run the ball up the middle because Georgia's D-line was just gap sound. But screen passes were great. They brought Jeremy Bernard in motion a lot. I don't love Tennessee's linebackers, and they really confused Tennessee's linebackers. So they did great there. They were good in the red zone. Ty Simpson didn't turn the ball over again. It's weird. Alabama just did not dominate this game. Alabama should not have won this game by 17 points. And they did. Shout out to the atmosphere at Alabama. It was spectacular. I think Alabama is very vulnerable. I don't think that they are looking like a perfect team out there. I think a lot of people are going to say that, but I mean, I still have questions about their running game. I still have questions about their wide receivers able to separate against man coverage. And their linebackers still don't look all that elite to me. So, I don't know. I still don't also, Braylon Staley kind of tore you apart. I don't trust Alabama leaving this game more than I did going into this game. So just kind of an interesting point there about Alabama. Yes, they won against a really good SEC team by 17 points, but I was not impressed. I might just be a stickler Alabama fan, but I was just not impressed. Tennessee, on the other hand, made some mistakes. I thought they were going to come out flying in the first quarter, and they really didn't, so I was really concerned about that. I think you should be as a Tennessee fan. The rest of their year, honestly, I said at the beginning of the year Tennessee was going to go 8-4. I think if you told me through their first 6 games they would only lose to Georgia and Alabama, I would say, yeah, I'd predict that to happen. So nothing has really gone off course for me in terms of what I thought would happen for this Tennessee team. I just also have them losing to Oklahoma and Florida. Is that realistic? Yes. I mean, if Tennessee wants to make the playoffs, in my opinion, I think they got to win out. They don't really have a big quality win right now, so I think they got to win out. Can they win out? I don't think so, but we'll see. We'll see. They're still a good football team. They played better man coverage than I thought they were going to be able to. Big win for Alabama. Again, I mean, the back half of their schedule's not nearly as tough as the front half, so they're not on the home stretch per se. I mean, they still have to play Oklahoma, LSU, and at Auburn. You know that's going to be a tough game for the Crimson Tide, but I think they're very vulnerable. I do believe that. I said that about Miami, and people called me a madman, but I think Alabama's vulnerable. And I'm not going to say that with Will on the pod today because he would have a fit. So I'm not going to say that. He's asleep, by the way. We're going to head up north to the great state of Indiana in a second. I'm going to take a little water break. So, this was a game between Notre Dame and USC that I thought could have Game of the Year potential. And it was a great game. It was. It wasn't 10 out of 10, wow, amazing, fantastic, one of the greatest games of college football in the recent years type of game. But it was a fun game. So it wasn't as amazing as I thought it was going to be, but it was still a great game and a huge win for Notre Dame. Their biggest win of the season, definitely, probably will be their biggest win of the year. The rest of the season, I think USC is such a good team. So big shout out to Notre Dame for winning this football game. I think this game was won and lost in the red zone. I truly believe that. Both teams struggled in the red zone. They moved the ball really well, and then they got to the money area, and they struggled. So Notre Dame just struggled a little bit less, and I think that played a big part in the result here. I want to talk a second about Notre Dame's defensive line. So Notre Dame has played games against A&M, Arkansas, and now USC. A&M has a really good rushing attack. I thought preseason they were going to have the best rushing attack in college football. And they went out against Notre Dame and only ran the ball for like 100 yards. And I thought maybe A&M's rushing attack isn't as good as I thought. And then I see them just tearing up Auburn's great run defense. And then I see them running for over 300 yards against Mississippi State. And then I see them against Arkansas having a heyday. I see them against Florida just creating so many creases. And I say, okay, well, maybe Notre Dame's run defense is pretty good. And then I look at the Arkansas game, and I see Notre Dame hold Arkansas to 13 points. Arkansas runs the ball better than anyone in the SEC statistically, even better than A&M. Arkansas just ran the ball for over 200 yards against Tennessee, the same Tennessee front that dominated Alabama. I mean, this is an Arkansas team that is one of the best at creating creases in college football in the run game. Notre Dame stuffed them. And then USC just came off running the ball just end zone to end zone against Michigan, who, again, very dominant front at Michigan. And USC ran the ball so well against them. Then they go to South Bend, yet again, completely shut down in the run game. I don't think USC had more than 70 yards rushing in this football game. To me, that tells me that Notre Dame's front seven and their rushing defense is the best in the country, in my opinion. So huge. I think USC's offensive line is so good. Notre Dame's defensive line was able to completely negate any impact they were able to have on this football game. So huge performances this year against A&M, against Arkansas, and against USC for this Notre Dame defensive line. I think it's so impressive. Another thing that's really impressive about Notre Dame, this is more of an obvious one, but Jeremiah Love, my goodness. Oh my goodness, Jeremiah Love. 24 carries, 228 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Also added 37 yards to the air. He is the best running back in college football. I believe that. when you can wheel your quarterback out and have him throw 136 yards and an interception and put up 34 points, that means you're running the ball well. Even Jadarian Price at 13 for 87. So Notre Dame exploded on the ground in this game. Jeremiah Smith, just so good. To me, I'll start with Notre Dame first. I do think Notre Dame is the top 5 power rating team in the country. I think that they should win the rest of their games this season. I would be surprised at this point if they lose any of the other ones, except for the Navy game. They're losing by 50 to Navy. But if a 10-2 Notre Dame team doesn't get into the playoffs, then I don't even really know how the playoffs work. They should 100% make it. Not only do they think they can do that, but I think they can return to the national championship. I think they're that good of a football team. I think they're a true national title contender, not just to make the playoffs, not just to win a couple games, but to literally win the whole thing. I think Notre Dame is that good. And USC, on the other hand, I still think they're a good team. Offensively, at least. I mean, they're still great. My offense, I think, is still good. These wide receivers are still awesome. They still only gave up 2 sacks on 42 dropbacks, so impressive there. To me, USC is just the same old thing. You can't tackle. And yes, it's Jeremiah Love, and he's great, but come on, USC. They couldn't tackle against Illinois while they lost. They couldn't tackle against Notre Dame. Can't stop the run. I mean, they're just getting creased like nobody's business. And USC's defense looks like it's once again going to hold them back from glory. That and their red zone offense. But for the Trojans, you still got to play at Oregon. Oregon is mad, man. I don't want to play at Oregon. I don't think anyone wants to play at Oregon. But this might just be the same old defense for USC. That's what I'm concerned about. But a huge win for Notre Dame. Don't take anything away from the Irish. Moving on once again down south back to the SEC. Our last trip over to the SEC for tonight. The Kentucky Wildcats. The same Kentucky Wildcats that, by the way, have lost 8 straight SEC games, hosted the Texas Longhorns and lost 16-3 in overtime. So, I don't want to take anything away from a big on-the-road night game overtime win against an SEC team. So, congratulations to Texas for winning this football game. But I'm just going to read some of the team stats from this game. Just so we can compare what these two teams did in this game. God, these just get crazier and crazier. Kentucky had 26 first downs. Texas had 8. I'm crunching the numbers. I got my AirPod in so I can call my math department. I'm getting in right now that is a 18 first down difference. Yeah. Kentucky had 18 more first downs than Texas. Kentucky had 395 yards of total offense. Texas had 179. Kentucky had 258 yards passing. Texas had 132. Kentucky had 137 yards rushing. Texas had 47. This is nuts. Kentucky had 40 minutes of time of possession. Texas had 20. Kentucky, how did you not blow them out? How did y'all lose this game? You completely dominated. Kentucky completely dominated Texas in every aspect of the game. And yet they lost. This makes no sense. I don't get it at all. To me, I'm mad about 2 things. First of all, Mark Stoops coached this game terribly in the big moments. I think that's big problem on his part. And you were bad on 4th down, and you missed a kick, I think. Just terrible stuff from Kentucky. The fact they didn't win this game is a travesty. They completely should have won this football game. It is beyond me how they lost. I don't understand. I didn't watch the full game. Maybe I missed something. Maybe someone just hacked the ESPN box score and completely changed everything. But this just doesn't make... How can you have 18 more first downs and lose? How can you have 395 yards of total offense and put up 13 points? I don't understand. I think Texas got smoked in this game and yet somehow found a way to win. I want to talk about something real quick that I've sort of been pushing off, and that is just a theory that one of my friends has put out there, that Steve Sarkisian is in fact a bad play caller and holding Texas back. I said that doesn't make any sense. Steve Sarkisian, I know he's a genius. I know he's great with offenses. I know he's the reason Texas is doing so good. But it's embarrassing how bad this offense is for Texas. They have so much talent, and yet you're putting up 47 rushing yards against Kentucky, 179 total yards of offense in a 4-quarter football game against Kentucky. Steve Sarkisian's got to get his act together. This is bad. This is really bad from Texas. It's embarrassing, honestly, how bad this offense is. I think as a defense, it's frustrating to see your offense go out there and perform as bad as they're going to. Man, Texas should have lost this game, 100%. Just straight up, they completely should have lost this football game. I just want to talk about that for a little bit. Embarrassing from Texas offensively. Embarrassing for Sark. Maybe it's just a bad couple years, but man, Texas's offense just cannot get off the ground. Moving on, one final time. This is sort of the last thing I want to talk about for a while. The Big 12 Conference is back. And I don't mean that in that they're really good and that they're one of the best conferences in America, but that the chaos has returned to the Big 12 Conference in terms of who the heck is going to win this thing. Texas Tech had won every game they played by 24 or more points. And Arizona State just got blown out by Utah. And the Sun Devils just beat Texas Tech. Number 7 goes down. They were undefeated going into this week, and they get smacked by Arizona State. Shout out to Texas Tech for making this game close. It was not close the whole time. And yet they came back in the fourth quarter. They ended up taking the lead, I think. Yeah, they did, and then Arizona State came back and won it. Sam Leavitt was fantastic again on third down. He was injured against Utah. He was fantastic in this game. I think he threw for almost 400 yards. Jordan Tyson had 10 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown. Arizona State was just the better team. I think Texas Tech, a couple of their issues got exposed to me that just were underlying and people weren't talking about. First of all, their secondary, they've been tested by Devon Dampier and Connor Weigman, who I think are two quarterbacks that are not very good at all in terms of arm talent and pushing the ball down the field. They played their by far best quarterback so far this season against Sam Leavitt, and they kind of got exposed. Sam Leavitt took advantage of a lot of what they were doing in the secondary. And also this offense, if y'all don't remember, this offense was bad against Utah. The fact that Texas Tech was able to win by as much as they did is because Utah's offense played so terribly. So, to me, their offense got a little exposed. They couldn't run the ball against Arizona State, and Morton was out, so Will Hammond was in, and he didn't throw for over 170 yards, and they just kind of got squeezed and lost. So, is Texas Tech vulnerable? Yes, they literally just lost. You know who is undefeated still in the Big 12 is BYU, who got a huge win against Utah in the Holy War. They are still undefeated. They are also undefeated in Big 12 play. You know who else is undefeated in Big? By the way, BYU's last 2 wins by 3 points against Utah, and then they beat Arizona in overtime last week. So they are by no ways dominating people. The only other undefeated team in the Big 12 is Cincinnati. They're not undefeated, but they're undefeated in Big 12 play. And then there are 3 one-loss teams: Texas Tech, Arizona State, and Houston. So far, those are the 5 teams that are in real contention right now. But any of these other 2-loss teams, I think, have a great chance to make the Big 12 championship. Iowa State and Arizona State last year were both 2-loss Big 12 teams that made the conference championship. Iowa State, TCU, Utah, Baylor, Kansas, and Kansas State all have 2 losses in the Big 12. I think they could all realistically get to Dallas. I don't think they're going to. I think I would project to be Cincinnati and Texas Tech right now. Actually, no, Arizona State. I had Arizona State preseason. I'll stick with Arizona State. But the point is, the Big 12 is so up in the air right now, which is so awesome. Just like the ACC, just like the SEC. And it's awesome. It's fantastic how much fun this conference is going to be. So shout out Arizona State. I said I was on the Arizona State train at the beginning of the conference, and I stayed on the train until they lost to Utah. Before they lost to Utah, I was saying Arizona State's my pick to win the Big 12 still. And they just went out and got a huge win against Texas Tech. So, huge result for the Big 12 and for Arizona State, for Sam Leavitt and the gang. The Big 12 is going to be awesome the rest of the way through. I just wanted to mention a couple more things before ending the pod tonight. Oregon is mad. They are angry right now. After losing that Indiana game, they just smacked Rutgers on the road. I don't think anyone wants to play Oregon. I'll just say that. Ohio State, Indiana fly really under the radar this weekend, get big wins against lower tier Big Ten teams. Under the radar is where you want to be right now, Ohio State, Indiana. You're not playing an SEC schedule, so you're not, in a top 12 matchup every week, so you can fly under the radar. You should. Handle your business, and they did. You should give me no reason to watch your game. This is what I'm saying. If I am ever tuning into an Ohio State game the rest of this year, it was not against Penn State or Michigan, you're doing something wrong, Ohio State. Same with Indiana. So shout out to them for winning. How about Minnesota? How about the Gophers, man? The Gophers are not dead, folks. If you don't know, I picked Minnesota at the beginning of the year to narrowly miss the playoffs. I think they were going to be so good, and they just beat Nebraska. So Minnesota's not dead. A lot of people are saying, Nebraska bad, Nebraska bad. No one is mentioning that Minnesota played a good game of football. They did. So big shout outs to my Gophers. They're in my heart still, and they got a big dub. Florida State, by the way, yikes, 3-4. Mike Norvell, I think the time is going to be up at the end of the season. If not, he's going to have to completely just philosophically change how he coaches football, and I don't think he wants to do that. And then also, Memphis just lost to UAB. So the American Conference Championship race just got much easier for Navy to win. The Navy arc this is the last thing I'm going to talk about on this podcast. I really want Navy to make the playoffs. They're still undefeated. They're the only undefeated team left in the American Conference. They could do it. They still have to play Notre Dame, Memphis, and South Florida. But Memphis just lost to a bad UAB team. By the way, just keep betting on teams that fire their coaches. I mean, it's crazy. UCLA fires their coach. Look how good they're doing. UAB fired their coach. They just beat Memphis. Penn State just fired their coach. They just beat Iowa on the road. So if you want to bet on teams that just fire their coach because it works. I mean, Arkansas fired their coach and just lost by 3 on the road at Tennessee and then to A&M. So they're playing great football after firing Sam Pittman as well. Shout out Bobby P, by the way, for hanging with A&M. It was a scary game for the Aggies, but they ended up pulling it out somehow. And yeah, that's all that we have for the Instant Reactions podcast for Week 8 of college football. Thank you so much for watching. College basketball, right around the corner. We're going to be getting some content out for college basketball soon. I'm excited about that. I hope you all have a great weekend, a great week. Just if you get anything out of this podcast, anything out of listening to this, just know that God loves you. He's calling you to love him. He gets so overjoyed and so happy every time you think about him, every time you pray for others, every time you do a good deed and you let God shine through you. He's smiling at you. Just know that you are loved, and just go make somebody smile this week, because you've got a lot to smile about, because God conquered sin. So that's what I'm going to end the podcast with, as I always do. Thanks so much for watching. God bless, and I will see y'all later. Peace out.